So what you want to talk about?
I can't do this no more.
Okay, you need a moment?
Nah, I can't do this no more. I gotta get away from you.
Okay, you want to take your little nap?
No,
What are you trying to say, Carrie?
I can't do this no more. I don't want to be with you. You and me are over.
You and me will never be over. You hear me? You my man. Until death do us part.
We're not married.
You my what?
I'm your man.
Until when?
Until death do us part.
Okay. You look cute. You wanna go get something to eat?
Yeah.
Alright, give me your wallet so we can go get something to eat. Okay. I love your sexy ass. You love me?
Yeah.
Do you love me, my nigga?
I love you.
Okay, I love you too. Let's go get something to eat.
Dear Quantum Geek, I'm a 31-year-old stay-at-home dad. I have a beautiful 5-year-old daughter whom I love and adore. I've been married to my wife for the last 7 years. However, though, I'm considering filing for divorce. The reason being is that over the years, she has become emotionally and physically abusive. Last week, before typing this email to you, she broke a vase over my head after I told her that I want to file for separation. Often I find myself having to basically make up excuses to cover up reasons for my injuries. Like for instance, I was fixing the lawnmower or I fell, etc. However, it wasn't always like this. The first 3 years were heavenly bliss, but occasionally she would have these unexplained fits of anger and rage. Obviously, I understand from my perspective that she had a very difficult upbringing as a child. But over the years, this anger has made her into this power-hungry and controlling woman. I've even heard of similar complaints where she works. I've even tried to actually get her to go to a therapist to get help, but it's expensive and very pricey, and she's the current breadwinner in the house right now. I feel powerless because I have no idea how to handle the situation. I've tried to actually go and get a job, but she doesn't want me to. She insists that I stay at home, keep the house clean, fix stuff, and look after our daughter. Her excuse basically is that she doesn't trust any nannies, so one of us basically has to stay at home. It kills me to admit this, going through this as a man, that I'm actually terrified of her. I'm terrified to approach her and confront her with this again because I fear she might react worse the next time. What should I do? First of all, Anonymous, thank you so much for emailing me and trusting me to give you a little bit of advice on this issue that you're experiencing right now, okay? But let's just first acknowledge from the get-go that things are actually quite bad. You are being abused, unfortunately, okay? And sadly, you're in a very complicated situation because there's a stigma attached to being an abused man, okay? Society on a larger scale tends to really frown upon that, like how is it that your wife can beat you up, you're bigger than her, you know? Or even if you didn't specify your size or your height or your dimensions or whatever, or hers, it doesn't matter. You know, there are different ways to get people to basically drop their guard so that and break them mentally and emotionally so that they're not even in a position to stand up for themselves, okay? So that's basically the pattern of behavior, sorry, the pattern of abuse, okay? So you are in a very complicated situation, so you need to handle this delicately and as cleverly as possible, all right, to ensure that you can escape the situation and get the help that you need, ensure a good and livable life for yourself and your daughter. Alright, so basically from what you said in the email, it seems that your wife is basically abusing you on 3 levels, okay? Yeah, this abuse is basically happening on an emotional level, it's happening on a physical level, and it's happening on a financial level, okay? Physically, she's beating you up, she's using objects to harm you, okay? Emotionally is that also you're finding that you're covering for her, you're covering for the misdeeds that she's doing against you. You're making up excuses, you're telling people that, oh no, I cut myself fixing this, when in actual fact it was really her, okay? And I understand there is a shame that actually comes with that, because then how do you explain? Again, it's that societal stigma that society basically imposes upon you as a man, okay? Even if we actually live in a patriarchy where usually when you hear about domestic abuse, usually the first image is always the guy overpowering the woman, but at times this can happen as well, you know. Plenty of guys out there who are in your situation, who are going through this right now, married or not married. Yeah, you do get women who abuse guys, okay? This is also happening on a financial level because she's discouraging you from getting a job, okay? And we all know why, okay? Obviously, when you have a job, you become somewhat financially empowered, okay? And that would actually depend on your level of education and your skill sets, and yeah. So if you have a job and you have finances, you're in a better position to actually go and seek help, like going to the police, going to get a lawyer, etc. okay? And you can actually free yourself from the situation, okay? So obviously she doesn't want that to, you know, she doesn't want you to get a job. She doesn't want you to become financially empowered, because then she can continue to control you, okay? So that is a form of economic or financial abuse, okay? All right, so obviously your wife didn't start off like this. I would imagine that once upon a time she was a good and a decent person, but you stated in the email as well that she's had a very difficult upbringing. And I'm going to give you my take on this whole thing. I'm thinking perhaps she probably grew up, you know, observing this type of behavior between her parents or whoever her guardians were at the time when she was growing up, okay? It's either she saw her father doing this to her mother, right? Felt angry, enraged and helpless, and now is doing this to you because she kind of feels like she's exacting justice for her mother, you know. But man, she's basically now she's taking this out all on you, okay? Or if we flip it around, maybe she did actually grow up in a household where she watched her mom abuse her dad, okay? Or the father figure, treat him like trash basically, and it was in her mind, it kind of was set as normal. It was like, okay, yeah, well, women can treat guys like this, you know, it's perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal to actually hit and slap a guy. And I've seen this in movies. It's almost kind of like a double standard, you know. When you watch a movie, and even if the guy was a bit of a douchebag, he said something to the woman that she doesn't like, and wah, she whacks him across the face, okay? You know, it's okay. Somehow it's okay when women slap guys or, you know, even punch them. But if a guy does that to a woman, then there's like, oh, how dare you? The point I'm trying to make is that it is not okay to hit anybody, ever. Okay, it's just not okay. Even despite how you feel, people need to find ways to basically deal with their anger, deal with their emotions in such a way that they don't have to physically express themselves either by slapping or, you know, punching somebody or any type of violent outburst, okay? So yeah, so that's my take on the matter. Alright, so Anonymous, now here's what you need to do, right? Okay, we want to basically make sure that this goes as smoothly as possible, because if there wasn't a child involved, you've got a 5-year-old daughter now, okay? So that means that you're forever tied to this woman for the rest of your life and your daughter's life. This woman will be a part of your life, whether you like it or not, okay? So it's not that easy to just up and leave, okay? And number two, you also don't have a job, okay? So here's what you're gonna do, right? Gather evidence. You can get, nowadays, it's not like it used to be, you can get little, secret cameras, plant them all over the house, get microphones as well, really good ones, okay? And since you're at home most of the time, okay, you can actually switch all the microphones off, okay? But as soon as she comes back home, switch all the cameras on, switch all the microphones on, okay? And then what you're gonna do, you're gonna recreate the situation again. It's painful, it's horrible, but you need to get the evidence, okay? You were motivated enough to actually write me, so I know that you actually want to basically solve the situation of yours and get out of it as soon as possible, okay? So you need to gather evidence, okay? You need to create a situation and tell your wife that you actually want to leave her, you're tired of all the abuse, you want to start over, and you need space to get away and get the help that you need, etc, etc. Now, if she reacts violently or becomes verbally abusive, then it's captured on tape. Okay. At the end of the day, evidence is what trumps all, because you can go to the police and file a complaint. You can talk to your friends and buddies and complain about it and even go to court, but at the end of the day, it turns into your word against hers, he said that, she said this, etc. Okay. So you need to get evidence, solid evidence. You need to get footage, you need to get audio clips, okay? And then once you've actually gotten the evidence that you need, and it's sufficient, it needs to be something that actually happens quite regularly, okay? So that is the most painful part, unfortunately, is that you're going to have to wait this out, a month, 2 months, but every single time you gather the evidence, okay? And once you actually have the evidence, okay, and it's sufficient and it's documented, now you need to go and approach a decent and sympathetic police officer, okay? The reason why I say decent and sympathetic police officers, because largely, by and large, and it's unfortunate that a lot of police officers aren't actually trained to deal with victims, okay? A lot of police officers are very insensitive. They actually end up blaming victims for the situations that they're in, okay? And this creates a vicious cycle, because now the victims are discouraged from coming forward because they don't want to basically face ridicule, okay? So try and see if you can actually find a decent and sympathetic police officer and a lawyer, and you sit down with them, present the evidence to them, and they will be able to advise you accordingly on what steps to take. Okay. Alright, so then once you've basically covered ground and you've received all the legal counsel that you need, okay, because in almost every country that you're in, there's always some sort of organization or a body that you can actually approach with any type of domestic problems or issues that you're experiencing in the house. Especially in developed countries, okay, you have social services and organizations that basically deal specifically with abuse, okay. Alright, so once you've covered that ground, basically you know legally what to do, what you can't do, then the next step is to now leave the situation. You need to pack your bags, and but even before you pack your bags, talk to your friends, talk to supportive family members, okay, and see if they can help you with accommodation, and also most importantly, get a job. Get a job, talk to your friends, network, and make sure that you basically attain economic independence, okay? You get a good paying job so that you can cover your legal fees, okay? And you can actually get yourself out of a situation. You can get your own place at a later stage, even if you have to stay with friends for a while, okay? Alright, so now it can be a bit intimidating to tell your wife that you're going to leave her. You've packed your bags and everything, okay? Because obviously it is likely that she'll throw a fit, she'll go into a rage, and it might escalate to a situation where she ends up harming or even killing you, or even worse, she ends up harming or killing the little girl. Okay, especially if, you know, if she takes out a gun and starts threatening to shoot you, that sort of thing. Okay, I don't really know how bad the domestic violence is, but she's harmed you, so you have to assume the worst. Okay, so in that case, once you actually have the evidence and the police know that you're dealing and you're living in a situation where you're being physically abused, they can actually arrange for you to actually get a police escort. Okay, so a police officer can actually come to the house and help you to leave your house peacefully with your kid, without there being any type of, to dissipate any possibility of a violent reaction. Okay, all right, because if you take the girl and you leave, it could be constituted as kidnapping. Okay, women are free to actually take kids and leave, because legally, I think in most countries, women can't be accused of kidnapping if they take their own child and leave. Okay, but you as a father, it's slightly different. Okay, so it is important that you cover that, because that could actually be used against you in court. Okay. Right, now, once you've successfully left the situation, you moved, you're now living with a friend or a family, you're working, obviously now you have to prepare for the court date. Okay, and sometimes these can actually happen months in advance. Okay, you'll find that even if you file the court case now, this month in March, you'll probably only get your first court date 6 months later. Okay, because often there's usually always a backlog of cases that are being heard. Okay, so hence why, okay, it's important that you work, you save up the money and everything, and prepare yourself before the court date. Okay, and once again, once you are in court, you present the evidence to the judge. The lawyer will basically take over from there. They'll advise you exactly what you can do, and then yeah, you wait and see what the judge will rule, who he or she will give, you know, the child to custody. They'll basically decide custody, whether you get sole custody or it will be joint custody, but the child will be with you most of the time until she basically gets rehabilitated and, you know, somewhat cured, or finds a way and proves that she now is emotionally stable and has ways of managing her anger, you know. Okay, so yeah, and that is if she actually doesn't get jail time, because women can actually get jail time for domestic abuse. You can actually get arrested and, you know, go to prison or jail for a little while. Okay, so yeah, she needs rehabilitation. Okay, all right, so yeah, at the end of the day, in court, evidence trumps all. Okay, the judge will see that you went to the work, you went through all the legal channels to try and actually better the situation. You're not setting your wife up or anything, and I believe at the end of the day, this will actually go in your favor. Okay, and then once you basically, irregardless of what the outcome of the verdict is in court, what the judge decides to rule based on the evidence that has been presented to her or him, you need to go for counseling. You need to go for counseling. You need to get the help that you need, because it's 7 years. 7 years of being involved with somebody will change you. Okay, and it's important that you sit down with a person, a very good psychologist or a counselor, who will help you to deal with all these emotional, mental, and psychological scars that you've acquired over the years. And this will help because it will prevent you from repeating this again at a later stage in the future. Okay, so that you don't keep attracting the same type of abusive woman. Okay, so that you don't turn around and now become the abuser in the next relationship, because you're still angry over what she did to you in this current relationship. Okay, so healing and going forward is very important. Okay, so you need to get the help that you need, and, you know, do it for yourself, do it for your daughter. Okay, she needs to have a good, positive role model as a father. Okay, and I hope personally that your wife also gets the help that she needs, and yeah, and she gets basically what she deserves for the pain and the humiliation that she's basically put you through. Okay, nobody deserves to be abused, and we have to call a spade a spade. Abuse is abuse at the end of the day. Okay, all right. I wish you the best in all of this, and I sincerely hope that this painful chapter will end as soon as possible so that you can start over, get all the healing and the help that you need so that you can meet the right person later on, you know, and start afresh and move forward, and yeah, make sure that your daughter does not become, you know, what your wife is like. Okay? And I sincerely hope that it goes well and this actually ends up having a happy ending. Alright, so don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you liked my video, and thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.